back to GTD. It's been a little bit. It's been a hectic couple months, if you will. But we're back in the studio. Very, very glad to be back. We figured with the end of the national championship and Super Bowl, we just start back with motorsports because y'all get that coverage everywhere else. But we're going to start with the Daytona 500 because that is this week. But before then, I do have a few additions you may have noticed, like this little Brad Keselowski diecast.
Is that the Walmart kind?
I believe so. I do believe so. But also, I have my backflip glasses holder on my Hugh Freeze action figure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got a little Hugh Freeze action figure that's going to sit here. And maybe he'll stare at Micah a few weeks if he makes bad picks. But yeah, that holds the glasses. So I think it's pretty cool. Thank you, Hugh Freeze, for joining the show. But also, happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Chase Elliott, you have my number, so reach out to your boy. Does Tyler Reddick have your number?
No.
Oh, well then. But yeah, like we said, we're back.
Also, Jimmy Johnson's racing this weekend.
Jimmy Johnson is racing, and he's in. We'll talk about the provisional a little bit later after we talk about our picks for the Daytona 500.
By a little bit later, he means about 7 minutes.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. But right now, JJ and Truex are both in on speed from qualifying.
Yes.
Kind of the two you'd expect.
Yes, I don't have to stress the duels. I'm so excited. I was so nervous because as a lifelong Jimmy Johnson fan, I remember the days where he would be locked in through charters and still he would get taken out in dual wrecks. So I'm so happy to not have to deal with duels this year. Johnson in, Truex in the Tricon car. I don't know. Obviously, it's basically a pseudo Joe Gibbs car. Yeah. They said, hey, Tricon, make a car. And they're like, okay. So, like you said, the two we expected to be in on speed. Duels are tonight as we record this. Justin Allgaier is going to be trying to get in along with
he's the one I want.
A million other people. But let's talk about the guy. You want to go ahead and talk about the provisional since we're already talking about duels?
Sure. We can talk about the provisional.
So the provisionals caused a lot of controversy. If you don't know what it is, basically NASCAR added a rule for the Daytona 500 that if the number of cars entering the race exceeds the chartered amount and the max amount, so 40 cars, what you're going to do is you might open a 41st spot in the case of a previous champion or well-regarded driver from another motorsport, like an IndyCar driver in the instance of Helio Castroneves, or if Kimi Räikkönen were to come back again, that kind of situation. However, the reason for the controversy is that this does not apply to NASCAR champions. So Jimmy Johnson nor Martin Truex Jr. could have used that if they didn't make it on speed. Personally, I think that's a bit ridiculous. If you're going to call it the Champions Provisional and then not include your own champions.
I don't think that's a personal opinion. I think that is the opinion of the masses, the opinion of the people. It just happens to not be the opinion of the France family. And
shocker
NASCAR.
there, the France family not agreeing with the general fan base.
And whoever's making these decisions. But yeah, I agree. Having Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex, who have both won in your sport a championship, that have done this time and time again they're some of the guys who raced at the oldest age we've seen. I mean, they raced well into their 40s, and you're going, we're going to make them get in and give this guy a shot. And I know it's kind of the whole Kyle Larson racing the Indy 500 thing, but at a small, like Kyle Larson was a huge name in motorsports around the world.
Yeah.
And racing the Indy 500 was a big deal. This is still a big name, but he doesn't draw the attention Kyle Larson did. He's not going to drag a whole fan base to the Daytona 500.
I think he's going to drag more than you might think, but it's a little bit different with Castroneves. He's a little bit past his prime. Obviously, he had the huge Indy 500 win near the end of his career that I think surprised a lot of people. But I like that Helio is entering this race. I think if you're going to create this provisional, make it apply to your own champions as well.
I mean, that'd be the best way to go about it. If you're going to have that, fantastic. It's got to apply to your guys.
Yes, exactly.
So you're telling me if Dale Earnhardt Jr., instead of having Justin Allgaier drive a car, he wanted to hop in. You don't think they would have given him a provisional to make sure he's in the race?
Did you know Jeff Gordon has been announced surprise 42nd driver in the
Exactly. And Junior, a guy who never even won a championship, but he would be.
They would move heaven and earth to get him in the 500.
He would be in the race. So I mean, we know they could do it.
It'd be up there with the Cars 2 camera for the other open cars if Junior wasn't in position. Like, get him out.
Yeah. Or for, I don't know, the biggest race of your season, allow 3 extra cars. Like,
That would be cool.
It's not like we haven't seen 43 cars on track.
Look at what Le Mans does every year. A bunch of extra cars are entered at Le Mans for the 24 hours each season, and WEC doesn't go, "You're not allowed." They literally let a NASCAR come in for fun. So let the guys compete, I think. But let's get into the actual Daytona 500 and some of what's already taken place. On the pole is Chase Briscoe in his first points race for JGR. And right alongside him is the previous winner of this race a couple years ago, Austin Cindric. Now, what stands out immediately is no Chevys on the front row. What do you think about that?
It's the first time in a while I could remember there being no Chevys, especially a Bowman. Cindric's been on the front row before, though.
Yes.
But yeah, not seeing a Bowman or Byron, or really just a Hendrick car in general up there is kind of different. But then again, I mean, it's front row to plate track. You're gonna be there for a little bit.
Where is Michael McDowell? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. Maybe
that's
a bad sign.
The Michael
for Spire.
McDowell streak has come to an end.
If he's not on pole to plate track, Spire may have a worse year than we originally anticipated.
Michael McDowell might have a worse year. I still think Carson Hocevar, Justin Haley are going to make some noise this season. But as far as actual on pole, first time a JGR car has been on pole since 1998.
And what happened in 98 that people are alluding to now with Kyle Busch?
Well, it was Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s first Daytona 500 win after 20 years of trying. It's Kyle Busch's 20th year of trying.
Yeah. A lot of similarities.
I'm taking
parallels. Oh, we're doing picks right now?
Right into it. Give me KFB. Give me Rowdy.
Yeah, I would, trust me, I would love to see that. Like 4 years ago, I would be like, what am I saying? But I would love to see Kyle Busch. Especially after the season he's had, and the season hasn't stopped. I mean, at the Clash, a lot of flashes of last year. But I would love to see
bowling
that
with Justin Haley.
Through. Yeah. So as long as him and Haley don't get together, I think he has a pretty clean race.
He and Haley might get together in a different way. If you saw that Cheddar's ad that was released, oh my goodness. How much money did they pay him to do that? It was not enough.
I kind of like the personality he's embodied, like just doing dumb stuff like that.
I don't think he cares anymore. He's like, I'm stuck next to Austin Dillon.
No, I love it. I mean, he's sponsored by nicotine, alcohol, and gambling. So I mean, he's got to get the whole spectrum.
Don't forget weed.
Yeah, also 3 Chi or Chi, whatever they call it.
It's Chi, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. But I'm taking Brad Keselowski, another guy who's tried it multiple times, been in the league for a while. I think he breaks through. I think he gets it. I think RFK has a monster year. We'll get into that later. But I think Brad Keselowski wins the Daytona 500.
Well, either one of those picks, honestly, I would be happy to see. Yeah. Obviously, I would love if my guy Jimmy came back and... Oh, that's not going to happen. What am I saying?
I'll be shocked if he makes it 7 laps into this one.
I don't know what it is with him since he's come back driving the 84 car. Even the races where it's not his fault, he gets wrecked. Look at Indianapolis last year. He was almost in the top 10.
The 500 last year.
Yeah, he just gets taken out in a wreck. So I'm fully expecting a stage 1 wreck that takes out like only Jimmy Johnson and then probably Kyle Busch.
I think stage 1 will be Jimmy Johnson and Tyler Reddick. But Tyler Reddick will have a car good enough to continue.
You do not want me to be happy, do you?
Well, no. Do you remember the Atlanta race we went to last year?
I do.
That's what happened.
He wrecked on lap 2.
Yeah, it was like right when they were coming to the start-finish line.
Yeah, I was like, there he goes. Oh, he's wrecked.
But how do you think? I know last year there was a lot of people upset with the stage 1 racing with the field. There's a lot of drivers. I know Denny Hamlin spoke out about it, saying, "What are we doing? Why are we trying to save fuel? Let's go racing. It's the 500. I want to win this thing." I don't think that happens this year. I think from the gun, they're jumping.
Well, I think part of it too is the new wording that NASCAR put in the rules about race manipulation and things like that, especially at play tracks where you are not allowed to work with anyone. Like, look at what happened to Parker Retzlaff last year. Chevy basically blacklisted him after what happened, and NASCAR wants to ensure that does not happen again. So not often that I'm saying this, but actually kudos to NASCAR on that one. I think it's a good change of the rules wording there. I do think you see that have an effect. I would love to see guys going for it more. Listen, I know it was partly due to the fuel saving, but the 4 wide we got at Talladega last year was incredible. Obviously, you can't quite do that at Daytona unless you want to have a monumental accident. But I still think we're going to see some good racing. I'm looking forward to the 500. I am so happy NASCAR is back. Yeah. It's been too long since I saw cars on a track, whether it be F1 or NASCAR, and I'm just so ready. But let's move beyond the Daytona 500 now and go
who are your long shots? Because the 500 is always like Ricky Stenhouse has won in recent years. There's always
Michael
one
McDowell.
guy who who just kind of stands out and can make a run and win this thing.
Okay. Long shots, I think you have to throw Todd Gilliland in there because the front row cars are usually fast. He's a fairly good plate racer, although at super speedways you see him a little bit better at Atlanta than the huge plate tracks. I think Justin Haley is a guy I'm going to throw up there. He always finds his way to the front at the plate tracks. He obviously has a win at Daytona in the range-shortened race as well. I think those would be my main 2 long shots, and then obviously you can never count out the absolute bulldozer at times as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at a plate track.
Yeah, I love the Gillen pick. I think he's someone that has a good shot to make some moves late in this race. AJ Allmendinger. We've seen him at the front a lot at Talladega, a few times at Daytona, but these races and road courses, I know they're mostly the opposite ends of the spectrum, like 100%. One, you don't touch the brakes at all. One, you're mostly on the brake. But it just tends to be his thing. I remember I was at the Talladega race, the playoff race last year, and he was in the running for a lot of it until his car got beat up towards the end, and he had to come in and pit before everybody because he just got hung out to dry, him and SVG. But yeah, he tends to kind of make his presence known at these tracks. So I think you're going to see a guy like AJ Allmendinger in there. And as far as non-charter teams, obviously,
Jimmy!
I just don't trust Legacy right now.
I don't either.
To win this one.
I have no hope.
I don't know anything about Tricon, but I think Allgaier,
if he makes it in, he can make some noise, I guess.
Yeah, because, they make the best. I know the Xfinity car and the Next Gen car are very different, but Junior has got more.
Okay, let's be honest. It's a 5th Hendrick car.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He's got more connections, if you will,
yes, it's a 5th Hendrick car
than any other guy in the Cup garage or not in the Xfinity garage. So I think that car is going to be pretty stout. So if he makes it in, which I think he will, because he was the first one on speed that didn't make it in.
Also, shout out to Fox for the worst graphic I've ever seen. It said, drivers not yet locked in. They listed Johnson and Truex in yellow. Locked in.
And Cashinovas was also on there.
Classic Fox NASCAR coverage the last couple of years, unfortunately. But
yeah.
I like your long shot picks. I think one guy that neither of us mentioned that could maybe just cause chaos is Ryan Preece and his...
I thought you were going to say Ross Chastain.
No, first opportunity in kind of a real big run. I know he was at Haas, but he was in like the ghost of Haas. So
yeah.
I think Ryan Preece maybe got to look out for with some audacious moves. But now let's move beyond the Daytona 500.
Way beyond the Daytona 500.
Playoff picks.
Yes.
If you were tuned in for this last year, thank you. You're one of the original viewers of the podcast.
And it also went poorly.
Yes, there were some interesting things in there. I will say, despite that, our Final Fours ended up not being too bad. You had Kyle Busch,
we both
which
had,
was a
we
disaster.
Both had 2. I think we both had 2 of the
We both got half the Final Four right.
Yeah.
He had Kyle Busch in the Final Four. I had Eric Jones in the playoffs. It was a bad situation. I thought he was going to win at Darlington. I don't want to talk about it. But let's get right into it with our... Let's start with the 4. You think you want to go through all 16? Or you want to just start with the 4 knocked out?
Yeah, we'll do all 16. We don't read them in order.
Yeah.
We'll do all 16 and then we'll knock them out.
Yeah.
So I'll just read them randomly. Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Shane Van Gisbergen, Todd Gilliland, Joey Logano, AJ Allmendinger, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, and Ryan Blaney. And Christopher Bell. I think that was everybody. I may have repeated some names.
My guys in are the 4 Gibbs cars. I think all 4 Gibbs guys make it. I think all 4 Hendrick cars make it as well. I think both 2311 cars make it in.
There's three 2311 cars.
Riley Herbst. I think Wallace and Reddick both make it in. I think people knew what I meant with that. But then I also have Kyle Busch, the 2 of the 3 RFK cars of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. And then I have Shane Van Gisbergen, Ryan Blaney, also in the postseason.
So we have some differences. So I'm going to talk about ones that were right on the cusp.
Just missed.
Yeah, just missed. Bubba Wallace, I have him out. Ty Gibbs, have him out.
Yeah.
He kind of he was looking like a prime position to make a playoff spot last year. In the back half of the year, it just...
Yeah, he didn't make it. He just got knocked out instantly.
Yeah, but he made it because I think of the performance he put up in the first few months.
First 6 races, I thought he was going to make it to the round of 8 or something.
Yeah. And then Briscoe, I have out. I know that's maybe intriguing to some people, but I have Briscoe out.
I think you're underestimating him a little bit. The guys that I have just missed, Austin Cindric, I think is going to be right on the edge there. The entirety of Front Row Motorsports, I think is not going to make it, although I could see either Noah Gragson or Todd Gilliland pulling a win out somewhere. Not so much Zane Smith.
Yeah.
I have Ryan Preece missing for RFK. AJ Allmendinger, I don't think the Kaulig cars are quite good enough for him to make it there. And then also Daniel Suarez, who was in the playoffs last year, as I do have his teammate, in which I forgot to mention Ross Chastain, but I have Suarez out.
I have Suarez out as well, and there's a few guys I want to touch on after we go through this about just what this season means to them as far as their seat goes. But now we can go through the list.
What about Austin Dillon's seat?
He's not in my playoffs? Oh, I forgot. Austin Dillon's seat is as cold as ice, and it will always be as cold as ice.
The Lance Stroll of NASCAR.
But yeah, the round of 16, first 4 out. In this order, the first car bounced out. I have Shane Van Gisbergen, Todd Gilliland, Joey Logano, and AJ Allmendinger. I really want to move Allmendinger up. I might, but I don't know. I'm going to lock it in there. The 2 Roadrunners are not going to win I don't know about this one. Anyway,
he gets doubting himself.
Allmendinger, Logano, Gilliland, SVG out in the first round.
All right, so my first round, I have Ty Gibbs getting bounced. And for context, the round of 16 this year, it is Darlington, Gateway, St. Louis, and then Bristol Night Race, which NASCAR has nerfed all to heck, which is very sad. But I don't think Ty Gibbs makes it out. Bubba Wallace, I think, gets knocked out as well. I don't think these tracks suit these guys very well. I do have Kyle Busch going out. I think he wins at Daytona. I just don't think RCR is going to be fast enough to give him the car he needs to move on in the playoffs.
I agree.
And then Alex Bowman, I have as my last driver knocked out in the round of 16. I'm a little concerned that the bottom half of Hendrick might not be too great this season. I think they might be top heavy. And then also a guy I forgot to mention, just missed. Joey Logano's not in my playoffs.
I really thought about him not being in my playoffs.
Just as real as even year Logano is, odd year Logano was.
I did not believe in. I didn't believe in even year Logano. So, I do now. I do now. I was
about to say
after the Bowman incident at Charlotte, I believe in even year Logano, which means I have to believe in odd year Logano.
Odd year Logano drops stinkers constantly.
So he's bounced out in the first round, which I think is fair. I mean, he's a 3-time champion. He's going to probably win a race this year.
Nope.
So I have him bounced out.
On to the round of 12. This is New Hampshire, otherwise known as Christopher Bell's own personal track, Kansas, and then the Roval. So the 4 I have getting bounced in this round, Denny Hamlin. Always seems to have random bad luck at Kansas, and then the other tracks, I just don't know how well he's going to do there. Really, the entirety
of the playoffs, he's not very lucky.
Yeah. Then Ross Chastain, I think he does pretty solid this year. I think he outperforms Trackhouse a lot of the season, but still gets knocked out in this round. Then William Byron, which I think might be earlier than some people have him out, but a lot of last season, that team was kind of coasting, doing nothing, and just managed to turn it on when the playoffs started. I'm not sure they do that this year, and you heard what I mentioned about the bottom half of Hendrick. Well, you know who the top half is now, in my opinion. Yeah. And then the last guy knocked out of this round is Brad Keselowski, partly because I'm not sure if RFK is going to be good enough to make the top 8, and partly because Brad Keselowski and the Roval just do not get along.
Yeah, and this is where our playoff brackets get very similar. The first car I have bounced out is Chastain, and then I have Hamlin as well, so we both have Chastain and Hamlin. I have Bowman bounced out. And then I have Kyle Busch bounced out in this round.
Bowman, Hamlin, Chastain, almost the exact same. Yeah. That's funny.
And so I'm Bowman I have getting bounced out in this round. I have William Byron moving on to the next round. But I'm tempted to switch those just because of the end of the year Bowman put together last year.
I know, yeah. It was tough for me to knock him as early as I did.
I don't know if he's going to carry that momentum or fall back into the Bowman we've seen the last 3 years.
There's so many good drivers at the top of the sport now. It's hard to say, this guy gets knocked out here. So,
I mean, ultimately, I made this decision on bouncing Bowman out and moving Byron on for the reason that the last 2 years, I would rather bet on William Byron than Alex Bowman.
Yeah, and I'm going further than Bowman as well, just not quite as far. So the round of 8 is Las Vegas, Talladega, which, holy cow, in the round of 8, that's mean, I think. And then Martinsville, as always, the cutoff race there. So my 4 getting knocked out are Shane Van Gisbergen out of the round of 8. I think he makes the playoffs, does enough to make it to the first round. I think he wins the Roval. That's how I think he ends up there.
He's got to beat AJ Allmendinger at the Roval.
AJ Allmendinger owns it on Saturdays, as the NASCAR commercial said, or the editor, whatever that you want to classify that. Then I have Chris Buescher, Going out in 7th for RFK, I have Kyle Larson going out in 6th. I think Talladega in the round of 8 is the most nailed on. Larson doesn't make it through the round of 8 ever. The more I look at it, it's a guy I originally had in my Final Four, and I'm like, I don't know about that anymore. And then my last guy to not make it to the championship for is going to be Tyler Reddick. I'm just not sure that 2311 is going to be good enough as a whole. Expanding to 3 teams, sometimes that drags the performance of your top car down, trying to allocate those extra resources. So still think Reddick is an amazing driver. Obviously, he's my guy now that Johnson is, can you even call it retired? Johnson's just out here doing whatever he's doing these days. So Reddick is my last guy not making it through the round of 8.
Also some similarities here. I have Keselowski, last car in this round, getting bounced out. Then this is where I have Byron. So really only 2 people separate him and Bowman from the last round. So yeah, Byron's out. I also have Reddick and Larson getting bounced out. Larson because the bad luck at Talladega, and Reddick
is awful at Martinsville.
Yeah, just so mostly the same reasons you said. But yeah, I think we both have Reddick and Larson, who have been Final Four cars the last 3 years, out not making the Final Four, which is very interesting. I haven't even looked at your Final Four. I looked at the top half just to see who your wild cards were, but I feel like they're not the exact same. I feel there's one guy different.
There's one guy that's very different.
I feel
I'm going to say that now.
I feel like they're like, I think we both have the same 3. So I'm gonna go through mine. Or I'm gonna go through my I can't go through my 3. I'm just gonna go through mine. Well, we'll bounce back.
All right.
4th, coming last out of all the playoff cars in
Let's start
in the final race.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go Ryan Blaney.
Ryan,
I mean, he may come 4th in the race, but I have Ryan Blaney making it to the Final Four again. I think he looks like the most dominant guy in the sport right now, arguably.
He does, yeah.
So he's got to be there.
My 4th is a guy that you didn't have in the playoffs, and it's Chase Briscoe.
Hey, I stand by that.
I think that he is going to be incredible for JGR this season. You look at, this is a guy that consistently turned up for Stewart Haas way ahead of the other guys in his team. You saw it last year. It wasn't quite the disparity as Kevin Harvick and the rest of those guys, but he pretty handily beat the rest of that team, delivered the win at Darlington. I think he's going to pass the test at JGR with flying colors. I'm sending him to the Final Four.
He's taking over the car Martin Truex was in. I think Martin Truex is a better driver. I know he was retiring and there's other things going on.
End of career Martin Truex Jr. is a better driver than current Chase Briscoe?
Martin Truex won, 2 years ago? He won like half the schedule? Or was it 3 years ago now?
Yeah, and he didn't win anything the last 2 years.
Right, but there was 1 year where he was very dominant in that same car, and I just don't think Briscoe's got the. I'm not saying there's no chance he makes the playoffs. There's a good chance of that. He made the playoffs last year in an SHR car.
Yeah, I'll admit Final Four is a bold prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad you make a bold prediction. I may have a bold prediction that people think is bold. Who's your third guy?
My third guy is Ryan Blaney. You mentioned him,
yep.
Probably the most consistent guy in the sport right now, and he's so good at playoff Martinsville. It feels like if he makes it to the round of 8, there's no way he doesn't make it to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And I think he's pretty much a shoo-in to be there, so Blaney on to the Final Four.
Another guy that has been very consistently so close, Christopher Bell. Mm-hmm. He's always there, but he just can never break through. I think the same thing happens this year.
All right. Well, my number 2 guy is a guy near and dear to your heart. It is Chase Elliott. I think Chase Elliott makes it all the way to Phoenix. You saw the dominant performance at Bowman Gray from him. Yep. This team looks like it is turned on for the season, ready to go, and I think he is the best Hendrick driver this season.
Yep. I would agree with you. He's my 2. He's my first guy to lose the championship. I think we saw the really good year he had last year. I think he has a year like that, but with more wins this year. And when you do that, when you have the year you had last year that pretty much almost got him to the Final Four without the wins, all you do is add more points. You add more wins. You add more playoff points, especially. So I think he makes the round of 4 pretty comfortably. I don't think he gets it done this year.
Who's your champion?
I have Chris Buescher.
Oh, my gosh.
I have Chris Buescher winning the championship for RFK. That's what I wholeheartedly believe. No, I do think, there was a period, a 3 to 4 week period last season where he was just like Christopher Bell. So close, couldn't break through. And some of those weren't his fault. He got wrecked out in some of those races.
Lost in the closest margin ever.
In one of the races he lost to his teammate in another RFK car. So I really think Chris Buescher makes strides this year and shocks a lot of people. I think he has
That would shock a lot of people.
A really good year, and I think there's a good chance he can win the championship.
I would love to see what the RFK social media page turns into.
I love the RFK social media
If Chris
page.
Buescher wins the championship.
If you need an intern this summer, I got you.
Yes. It's the best social media in NASCAR for sure. My champion is a guy who I've repeatedly said I think is out and out on speed, the fastest driver in NASCAR. It's Christopher Bell. I think he gets it done this season. It feels like he's due. I cannot believe he hasn't won a championship yet. And I think JGR as a whole is going to be a bit better this season, hence why I have Ty Gibbs in the playoffs. And 2 JGR cars in the Final Four I think would be slightly unexpected, especially if neither of them was Denny Hamlin. But Christopher Bell is such a good driver. I think, obviously, pure speed, you know my thoughts. I think just as a whole, as a driver, he's top 3 in the sport right now. He is so good. I think this is the year he finally puts it all together and brings home the championship.
I don't hate that. In a different world where the playoff system isn't like this, and it's, based off consistency, and I guess you can argue this is based off consistency, but if it's the chase or another full season format, I have no problem with him putting him as my championship.
That's the thing about the Final Four. Like, I can say Chris Buescher is crazy all day, but if Chris Buescher delivers the best 4 races of his life, he's champion.
Yeah, but if it comes down to one race, he gets tangled up, something happens, So I don't know. I see another disappointing year.
He can't have another one. He had the brake rotor explode in Phoenix 2 years ago. Had the luck this year. It has to happen eventually. The wall ride.
It will happen eventually. He's also like 13 years old, so eventually it's gonna happen. But yeah, so those are our playoff picks. Let us know who you have. Let us know your thoughts on Briscoe in the Final Four. Buescher being the best driver of the season this year.
The champion doesn't mean the best driver of the season.
Joey Logano was the best driver last year.
Cut in the podcast.
A 3-time champion, FYI. It says it on his fire stick.
I hate it.
So yeah, get used to that. If you haven't seen that or heard that yet this year, you're welcome.
We need a new loaf of sliced bread, please.
I think it's Christopher Bell. I agree with you on that.
No, it's Connor Zilisch.
Well, we'll have to see when he gets up there. But as of guys in the thing right now, it's AJ Allmendinger, young AJ Allmendinger.
Yes, fact. So you mentioned talking about guys who this season might be big for their seat and their future in NASCAR.
I want to save that for next week just because I want to see how they do.
All right,
which I know it's the 500. Like it's a different race and all that.
Before we get too in depth into it, give me one name though.
Suarez.
Okay. Mine for the year is Josh Berry.
Okay, I can see that. I think Suarez is in a little different just because of the expectation.
Suarez's issue is he has a Connor Zilisch going, I would like your seat now, please.
Yeah, and I think they had a down year last year, but I think Trackhouse is going to perform back to where they were 2 to 3 years ago and have a better year, and he's going to kind of be left in the dust.
I mean, let's be honest. The thing holding Trackhouse back is ECR engines.
Yeah. That is true.
I think if that team had Hendrick engines, they would be so much further up the sport than they are.
Oh, I do too. I think Ross Chastain would be a Final Four lock for me if they had Hendrick engines.
Interesting. Okay, I don't hate that actually, but
yeah.
This has been our Daytona 500 predictions, our playoff predictions. Cars are going fast in circles, tri-ovals, random shapes for Shane Van Gisbergen. It's been I was going to say it's been a great offseason. It's been a weird offseason. We've had lawsuits, many other things have happened, but
lawsuits on hold now for some reason. I mean, they're like, let him race, you can't do that, and now it's on hold. So
yeah, interesting situation, but what's important is cars are back on track. Duels are tonight as we record this, so I know we talked about Justin Allgaier. If it turns out he's not in the show, oh well. So we'll find out. We'll see you guys next week, and enjoy the weekend of NASCAR.
Adios.